We are back in the club today, joined by Linda Orton, Chief Marketing Officer at Riverrun. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Now, Riverrun is a leading advisory firm specializing in business transformation and value creation for CFOs, private equity firms, and other stakeholders. Just so our listeners at home know what Riverrun's all about. So for yourself, Linda, how did you get started within the organization?
I was consulting on my own, again, after being in-house for many decades. And we have a absolutely fantastic internal recruitment team. And they actually found me just about a year ago.
Okay. So a year on the job.
Yeah. And it's been a very, very busy year.
So for yourself then, coming from consulting, how did you get involved with consulting to begin with?
So I've been a chief marketing officer within the legal world and also in the consulting world. And I was with a large international firm similar to what we do for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I went back in-house after running my own companies for almost 20 years. I went back in 2016.
Okay.
And it's been an interesting ride.
It sounds like it. I think anytime we have guests from the consulting world, what you all do in that neck of the woods is just fascinating. And the way you guide your clients and find that best return for them. It's problem solving at its finest. For yourself also, you think about a 20-plus year career, that journey begins somewhere. How did that all come about for you? That you found marketing as that key point for you that I want to have a career in marketing?
Well, you're being kind. It's a 35-plus year at this point, but what's an extra 15 years?
What's a number?
I actually started my career in professional services on the legal side,
Okay.
and I thought I was going to become a lawyer, but I realized early on that I really enjoyed managing people and managing projects. So I started working in high school, actually for Wachtell Lipton, one of the most premier M&A boutique firms in the world. And I then graduated and went to work as a litigation paralegal. A few jobs later, I was doing recruitment for a firm called Proskauer. And I distinctly remember we were working on their content. We were creating a new recruitment brochure. And I was involved in the design and the actual contents and the writing. And I was an English major undergrad.
Okay.
And I realized I love this. I love the fact that we're packaging and creating something that's going to help the firm recruit top-notch students. And at that point in the late 80s, before you were born.
I am a late 80s baby, just to say.
I realized that marketing was starting within the legal community at that point. And I thought this is an area I'm fascinated with. It combines my love of professional services and content. It tapped into some of the sales experience I had had.
Sure.
It involved data. I was responsible for some of the first CRMs, and then in law firms for some of the first websites that were created. So it was a natural evolution, and I ultimately went out for a brief while, worked as a sales and marketing director for a point-of-purchase manufacturing company.
Okay.
Which I think when I took the tour here a while back, I had said, I've
a little
seen
bit of a
some
blast
of
from the
this.
past.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went back in-house for Clifford Chance, which is a global firm, and I was their North and South American marketing director. And at the ripe old age of 24, I was traveling Europe and doing marketing, and I fell in love with it.
And that's an incredible life experience. Amira, you've done some world travel to Europe lately.
I am a lover of travel, but I'm also fascinated about getting to be part of something from the ground up. Like to be able to say I was like part of the first one to start something as major as the marketing aspect of law. Like that is just really something you don't get to say anymore. Like when you share that, or like, do people have tons of questions? And
within the legal community and consulting community, marketing has been around for about 40 years now.
Okay.
But people don't think of marketing. Every so often I still meet people who they don't fully understand. They think it's either this piece or in concept of what Club Colors does, they think of it as swag or
Sure.
they think of it as website. For professional services in B2B, it's not exactly the same as what happens in the B2C world.
Sure.
And with your background on the retail side and the bookstore side, it's not about products. We're selling and educating people about what we do intellectually and how we help create a cleaner way of looking at the data and having
Yeah.
the data impact the business in a different way. So whether it's law or accounting or consulting, I think that marketing is still a growth area. AI is obviously changing it. We'll
Sure.
get into
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
a bit. But
AI is changing a lot of things.
Everything. And I love it.
it is. But yes, it is very exciting being able to say that, I was there at the beginning of law firm marketing.
Yeah.
And the group is, I think, the legal marketing group is celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, and I still have incredibly wonderful friends from early in my career then.
I would imagine, yeah, you've built a network of professionals through your time, and I would imagine that's opened up conversations, opportunities, and as you've gone into different consulting roles, like that professional network just grows and has an incredible impact.
Absolutely. And running my own companies, I did marketing consulting, management consulting, recruitments for a lot of C-suite positions in addition to marketing. And then I also owned a video production company, and we were very early into video production before Instagram and YouTube was nascent at that point, and we were creating a lot of long form pieces.
Sure.
But it's, that's part of the fun part, seeing how things change and then changing with it. And being able to stay up with the technology is hugely important for anybody in the marketing world.
You've been part of this for a period of time where there's been a lot of changes that have transpired, and you hinted at, Instagram. How has social media and the rise of short form content really changed that equation for you?
Tremendously, and every time LinkedIn says that they're leaning in further to video, we're obviously looking to continue evolving our presence in the marketplace, and with Riveron, trying to create engaging short interviews of our people, of things related to our webinars. It's, again, how do we communicate in the most effective way what our professionals are doing in the market with our clients and make it stand out somehow in a different way from everybody else.
I mean, that's always the name of the game with marketing a little bit. You got to find a way to catch attention and stand out.
Absolutely.
So it's fascinating when I think about the changes in technologies and how that short form versus long form that you started out with. But now you see also podcasts come into the picture, which is another rise back to long form content. It's just interesting to see the trends and navigate that in real time. I'm sure that's a huge part of your day-to-day is reacting to what is relevant.
The balance is always about the reacting versus being proactive. And we get a lot of requests. I manage an 18-person team. Our professionals have interests that they want to do, but it ultimately always has to fit part of the larger strategy that I'm trying to connect the dots between what we do with the marketing team and what our business strategy for the firm is.
Sure.
Podcasts, as well are one of the most competitive things to do well.
Yes.
95% of podcasts, I know you know this, don't make it past 100
That is
episodes.
true. 100 episodes is a big number in the podcast world.
So the fact that you all, are doing so well with this, kudos to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yes, I have had a lot of our professionals raise their hands and say, why aren't we doing a podcast on this?
Right.
And my view is I would so much rather get them on a podcast that focuses on their areas of expertise. And we've got a wonderful PR agency that we're working with. And that's part of what they're helping us do, seeking speaking opportunities for our professionals, because, as you know, producing a podcast consistently requires a lot of focus and people power, and the editing can be substantive as well.
Yes, it is. It takes a village a little bit. You don't always see everyone involved with the production side of stuff, but it is something that there's multiple minds at work.
I actually
to make
wrote
it
that. I
happen.
wrote that for some of my notes, actually. It does take a village. It truly does. But
does.
podcasts, I think, are graduate level marketing, to
Yeah.
be quite honest. There are a lot of other things that we're honing and refining right now, and maybe down the road we'll think about that. But we have a wonderful writing tool that helps our professionals opine on content. It's called Passel.
Interesting.
And it makes just writing content and getting it out on our website and distributed amongst LinkedIn very, very simple.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah. So in terms of business strategy and marketing, those worlds collide. And recently, there's some news regarding the brand at Riveron. The firm recently announced the launch of a refreshed brand, unveiled a new tagline, Complexity and Urgency Simplified. What goes into launching something like this? And I would imagine this is months, if not years, of preparation to get to that point.
If you have months or years, that's a wonderful thing. We did not, and
Well, more power to you then.
Thank you. Speed to success, and the final product took a village in the truest sense.
Sure.
When I started the firm, one of the things that I wanted to do was assess from our people internally what their needs were and where they felt we had the biggest opportunity to hone and refine, and what I could make as quick of an impact on.
Sure.
I did a survey before I joined the firm of my marketing team, and I also talked to people that I knew in the professional services world to do an informal survey of what they felt about Riveron, what was the emotion that they knew. And what I learned was that some people actually understood what Riveron was. Some of them had some name recognition.
Sure.
But for me, consistently driving home a brand that actually reflects who we are and what we do was what I wanted to come out of this with. It's not only about the external, it's about what the employees actually think about the brands. So
Absolutely.
for me, I wanted to create a parallel track of the design was a piece of it, the messaging was a piece of it, but ultimately Riveron guides our clients, sometimes in very turbulent waters, and we have the benefit of having a visual in our name.
Absolutely you do.
And
100%.
20 years ago, roughly, when the company was first founded, my understanding is that the legend goes that he was drinking a beer down by the river, and actually that was part of the inception points of the name.
I love that.
I love the lore of any brand.
Absolutely. You never really know if it's true, though, or not.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
But they had used a river historically in early days, and then they went away from it. And I didn't feel like it had a whole lot of memory attached to what we were using previously, most recently. We worked with a wonderful agency. I wanted to define the messaging before we actually went to the design. So the complexity and urgency simplified came out as a result of some workshops I did with our leadership team,
Sure.
of which I'm a member. And it was a very positive experience, actually. You've got a lot of smart people who have differing views, but I felt it was a successful process that we were able to get to a place that everybody agreed on it.
Yeah.
And then I hired a very small women-founded design agency to help us create what I kind of had in the back of my head. I'm a big hiker,
Okay.
and I very much like the National Park Service posters of the 1940s. A lot of
Love
them
it.
look very woodblocky in
Okay.
nature. The art is, it almost has kind of an arts and crafts Art Deco feel to it.
Yeah.
And I gave them some ideas or samples, and then I knew that I wanted it kind of locked in a shape. So we had been using very angular, a lot of triangles historically, and I felt that they were very hard edges. So I wanted to lean towards a little bit more circular in nature. And we iterated, and the leadership team was actively involved in everything from font to color to actual design of giving us feedback. It's hard when you've got a group of...
There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and then there's a lot of minds and a lot of voices to manage.
And everyone's an artist.
Oh, yes.
Everyone's an artist.
We hear this a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we hear it a lot across both our corporate side of the business and our higher education side, where you've got brands, and anytime there's a team involved with launching a rebrand effort, there's always opinions and voices and internal politics you got to work through to get to the point of going live with the new brand.
It's so true. It's so true. But the great part of having a team of senior leaders involved is that they feel ownership in it, and that their voices were heard as we went through the process. And I mean, you joked before, this process I've been through before with big firms can take a year and a half. What I loved about the group that we worked with is they were willing to iterate very quickly with us, because I didn't feel like we're PE owns.
Okay.
Everything moves at a slightly faster pace.
Sure.
And we wanted it to hit the ground as swiftly as possible. So I joined beginning of May. We started working on this in the summer.
Okay.
By the fall, we were finalized, and we launched it internally in December and externally in the beginning of January.
That's amazing.
That is so impressive to be able to move forward that quickly. But I do think having the buy-in of not only your senior leaders, but doing the survey with the employees, like to have an entire company that is engaged and involved in a new brand, I mean, that creates an ownership and pride. And would be reflective. Everyone's sharing the same story now.
Thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement very much. It's a big piece of the process that I'm very proud of. And it's not just about the visual, it's about giving the language to everyone so that they've got it, and putting it in a place on our intranet so that people can find the language to have it to use in written format, and also use it in pitch decks or in proposals. I do a lot of training with regards to LinkedIn at the firm and how our people should be communicating and can be communicating. We want the messaging to be consistent. Everybody needs to put their flavor on it.
Sure.
But being able to tell a story about what the water and the river means. We gamified it. We used a gamification app.
I love that.
And one of my favorite pieces is we asked for people to send pictures of themselves by a river.
Okay.
And we gave out some great swag. I bet you know where we produced that.
I have an idea.
And it was incredibly successful. We had participation from across the firm at all levels.
That's amazing.
And we communicated it internally so they could see some of the extreme creativity of our folks.
That's amazing. And that's why you do the gamification. You get people involved, you get them engaged, and at the end of the day, there's excitement building around this rebrand that was the darling of the time period you were working on this. You had to make sure that you had that engagement and buy-in once it was rolled out. But that timeline is wild. So May, started working on it in the summer. It's rolled out by December. I know this timeline because this is the timeline my wife and I planned and had a wedding. We got engaged in May, planned it all out, and then married in December. But to that,
very impressive as well.
Thank you. All kudos goes to Danielle with that.
You mentioned the brand and you mentioned the parks. I am a huge national parks fan. It's my bucket list. I finished several states already. But when I was looking at your brand, I was like, oh, this is so, like, it's touching a part of me, like, it's so familiar. And that's what you want. Like, when people see that they feel a certain way, and that's the greatest thing about a brand. But as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, now I know, like, I know why I immediately was like, this is amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad it touches you in that way. I think one of the interesting ongoing conversations was, did it look too much like, either an entertainment brand? Did it look too much like a clothing manufacturing company? I'm specifically not stating things that I don't want to state. But that was the concern. But I thought one of the most fascinating conversations we had was how the water appeared. And one of our leaders, who's very cerebral, said, I don't want the water to be too stagnant because then it looks too calm.
Yeah.
So just getting into the nuance of how you communicate movements and motion, and without making it look like Class 5 rapids.
It's that complexity simplified.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So I was thrilled with that, but yeah, I'm glad it speaks to you.
It does. I'm sure many people.
It stands out to me. I've been working here for 9 years now, and I've seen plenty of rebrands through the years. This was one, though, that as soon as I saw it on Melissa's concepts, I'm like, that's really interesting. And it caught my eye, and I wanted to know, what is River on?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. One of the things we also wanted to think about is how we're using it. How is it going to look in comparison to a lot of the same letter blocks, which are frequently what our competitors use with just blocks of color. When we were doing the demonstration, I will use one company because this is very well known, but I gave the example of when PwC redid their logo in 2010.
Okay.
The pink, orange, yellow that's to the right of the letters. I'm curious, do either one of you know what that actually stands for?
I do not.
No.
It's a flower. It's a pixelated flower.
Interesting.
And nobody knows that, though, because the story hasn't aligned. And in choosing those colors, they wanted to present themselves slightly differently from everyone else who's there. But I would love, if I were the CMO there, it would be a question of connecting what that flower, what the pixelated image stands for. I want everybody at our firm to be able to communicate at a basic level. At Riveron, we guide our clients through turbulent waters. And even if you don't remember anything else, that's the story, and people remember stories.
Absolutely.
We are great storytellers, like Chris and I both, and believe that as long as you understand the story of what you're doing, like that's how people can connect and communicate and really carry the message. And again, looking at the brand and the logo, I was like, I know what we're doing here. So to hear you like really talk about how you got there is like, well, they nailed it 100%.
And the shift from the angular design to the round, it stands out.
Yes.
I like that.
Well, I felt the angular was a little dated.
Yeah.
And triangles have never been my favorite. So my team heard that often. But anyway.
That's amazing. Was there a whole geometry section for the rebrand where you're going through?
Basically, yes. There was.
That's
But now
amazing.
we have a beautiful brand book, and everybody understands how and when to use things. And we've locked our brand, our logo, and our word mark down a little bit more tightly. So people have to actually ask marketing if they want to use it for certain things.
That was a question I had, is how do you ensure adoption of the new brand and not continuance under the old brand?
Oh, that's the biggest challenge in professional services. So you roll out new tools.
Okay.
We're rolling out a new email signature as we speak. We're doing new business cards. But I'm from New York, and in New York, after some of the unfortunate circumstances with terrorism, we had a very effective campaign in the subways that was if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
So I've adopted that for any firm and a team that I've worked with internally.
We use that slogan for quality control here.
If you see something, say something.
Okay, well, there you go. Great minds. Great minds. But I really do believe that people on the ground have to understand that not following brand compliance hurts everybody.
Yeah.
So it has to partly be self-monitored. We implemented a new tool to help with pitch creation and deck creation that enables us to run a deck through and actually ensure brand compliancy in the deck itself.
Wow, that's cool.
We can put links to all of the actual tools. I don't know if you ever do that, but in the show notes, if we want to do links to all of the vendors I'm talking about.
We like links.
Give
Yeah.
give shout outs to them. But I do think that it's everybody has to be responsible for understanding that we
Yeah.
want one look, one feel, and consistency
You need to be
going into
united
the
in that.
market. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
we need people to play nicely with us.
I think that's always the challenge anytime there's a change of the norm, whether it's a rebrand, policy, procedure, getting people to all row the boat in the same direction is part of the challenge. So it's always interesting to hear how different organizations handle that and manage through it. So for yourself, Linda, all of this started back at the University of Chicago. You're a U Chicago graduate. How does your time on campus, when you reflect back on that, how did that shape your career path? And how do you think back at that time?
Yeah, so I'm going to try hard not to cry on this part because I am a very, very loyal Maroon, and U of C changed my life. It didn't just change my career path. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory.
We love stories.
I ended up at Chicago by a total fluke.
Okay.
I had started at a state university of New York.
Okay.
Because of financial
SUNY.
reasons, SUNY.
Yeah.
And I was dating somebody who I was a camp counselor with who
Okay.
wanted to study with Saul Bellow at University of Chicago. And I knew that I was looking to transfer because the SUNY school I was at was just too big and it wasn't a good fit for me.
Sure.
And I had some wonderful professors who saw that I wanted to be challenged a little bit differently than I was. And I applied to a couple of Ivy Leagues and Chicago, which I had never heard about before this guy. And Chicago gave me more aid and grants and scholarships than any of the other schools.
Sure.
So we transferred together after my 1 year elsewhere. He had he decided after all of that it wasn't for him, and he actually left within the first quarter, and I stayed.
Okay.
And
It's a big decision.
it was a huge decision, and I worked my way through the remaining 3 years with every single job you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
I never missed a class because I was paying for it myself.
Sure.
I met people there that changed my life. I still have some of my closest friends are from my University of Chicago days. U of C taught me how to think. It taught me how to write. And I'm first generation college, so my parents, my dad died when I was young. My mom wasn't particularly supportive of college. She didn't understand the opportunities it would afford. She was from a very different era.
Sure.
And I met somebody at a friend's wedding, actually, when I was a junior. They got married very young. They had been dating forever, and they're happily married almost 40 years later now. And the woman I sat next to at their wedding was a paralegal manager at Davis Polk, and that ended up being my first job. I interviewed for banking jobs. I interviewed for legal jobs, and ultimately, because I met her, that was ended up being my first job. And I graduated in '87,
Okay.
which you may or may not know was when a huge financial crisis was in the fall. So everybody that I went to school with who took a banking job, unfortunately in October lost their jobs.
Oh, wow.
And just by incredible luck, I was on the law firm side of it. So that Chicago, I never could have anticipated ending up in a school like Chicago because I didn't even know it existed.
Sure. Sure.
And it truly embraced lifelong learning. So sorry, it's a very long-winded answer, but I'm passionate about Chicago and the opportunities that it affords every student who goes there.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible brand, and it's a place that has transformed lives. Even, for Myra and myself, we reflect back at our time in school, and you have that connection to your campus and your school, and it's that time period of your life where things you're learning, your voice as a young adult, and that lifelong learning mindset is something that you get to be hands-on and learn how to think through things, how to write, as you mentioned. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from my time in college is it taught me how to problem solve, how to work as a team, how to do all these different things that regardless of what industry you end up in, it provides a foundation for you. I'm not doing anything I have a degree in these days. And but there's skills I learned from that time there that absolutely I use every single day.